What's up, everybody? Another episode of the Total Podcast. Today, I got a special guest here with me, Kristi Glenn from Pinnacle Partnership. What's up, Kristi?
Hey,
What is Pinnacle Partnership?
Pinnacle Partnerships. Well, first, we're happy to be here.
Thank you, thank you.
And I'm glad to be stepping in for Ollie today. Some big red glasses to fill. But yes, we are an organization that really focuses on the importance of mental health. And we do a lot of training for families, for community members, for teachers, organizations. So we really think of ourselves as caring for the caregivers, really helping those who are helping the people who are facing mental health needs. And that can range from stemming from a lot of different places, whether it be challenges within a family, meeting basic needs, a lot of the different things that we're seeing unfold within our country and our communities today. So, yeah, we're sort of here to answer the call of what is happening and support communities all around.
Cool. So before we even get into what we really want to talk about, if somebody wants to learn more about Pinnacle Partnership and what you guys do, where could they do that?
They can go to our website at pinships.org, which is PINNSHIPS.org.
All right, cool. We had a conversation the other day, and the numbers kind of blew my mind, right? You said there was, I think it was 3,000 kids in the Brockton school system that are missing. Not physically missing, we know where they are, but there's a reason why they're not going to school. What is the reason? I'm laughing because it's kind of laughable, but it's a serious.
But it's also scary.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. So, there's not a lot of hardcore proof, but there's a lot of ICE activity happening in the Brockton area, and we're seeing a lot of kids not come to school. And so, in some of the outreach that has been done from the school systems, and again, this is from various conversations that I've had with people who interact with the school through the work that I do. The outreach is that when they're going to families' homes, either the families aren't there or they're not answering the door, or if they're not there, they're not sure if families have decided to leave on their own, if they have been intercepted in some way by ICE. If that has happened, there's not communication between those government agencies and the school district very much. And so there's a lot of question of what is happening to these students and families. There is a virtual academy in Brockton that is still in existence. It really came to fruition and grew a lot through the COVID times. And so there may be students that are accessing education in that way, but it's really hard to tell, and it's very difficult to have those conversations with families from that perspective. So I think the thing that is, for me, really concerning is the school district is, I think, really working diligently to try to figure out what they can do to support kids and families. So when kids and the enrollment drops in the city, and these are numbers that you can look up. I looked up what's currently published. So in 2023, the city of Brockton received about $22,000 per pupil. So if the school district is missing 3,000 kids,
Big number.
and you multiply that by 22,000, that's how much money is now being reduced from the district, which in some ways makes sense because those kids aren't there. But in other ways, it's reducing the capacity to try to help those families.
Well, I mean, the point, like, what if those kids just decide to go to school next year? Right? Now we're still falling behind,
Right.
because they just got cut so much.
Now we have to find that money
Yep.
again and bring the money back in. And the other thing is that there are all of the other kids that are in the school district that now their friends are not there, or they know what's happening with their friends, but they can't talk about it.
Yeah.
And so they're walking around with us. And there are teachers and all of the folks who are there who are trying to care for these students and provide them with an education, help them with their basic needs, are really being impacted. And so the dollars that are there to be able to support efforts around mental health, staffing for the kids, professional development for students and paraprofessionals and all of those folks, provide kids with opportunities to understand how to process what is happening, is just depleting out of our school systems.
So obviously that's a big issue, one, for funding and everything else. But then we also look at, what if they're not getting the education they need? Now all these 3,000 kids falling behind. what impact would that have in one, mental health, two, school system? Like, I, where do we go from here?
Yeah, it's definitely sort of a dire situation. And I think for us at Pinnacle, we really think about bringing hope to the mental health space. And so we have to address what these challenges are. And I think Brockton, and many communities like Brockton, have been facing what I call a trauma cycle, a large trauma cycle that they have been going through since COVID, right? And
Yeah.
so we actually can see the numbers of what has happened with students from when kids were out of school, when kids were in lockdown and trying to learn remotely. And we're seeing these kids now who, even from the youngest students who were babies when COVID
Yeah.
happened, and when they're coming into schools at the young age of preschool or kindergarten, they didn't have those earlier interactions and they're not acclimating as well to classroom environments, all the way through kids who are in college, maybe didn't make it through college because they were in the
Yeah.
pandemic, kids who graduated high school or are not as adept as they thought they would be to go into their college years. So now when we have this other type of traumatic incidents that are happening within schools, it's definitely holding kids back on their education. So now we're having compiled and compacted trauma on top of each other. And then we don't have the tools to teach kids how to process this trauma, even state that it is trauma. You know, we're going right against stigma related to mental health, and especially in very diverse communities. People don't talk about mental health as
Yeah,
openly.
very true.
Although younger generations are very good about talking about it,
Yeah,
a lot of
the
times when
younger, but then it's the culture too, right?
it is.
In Cape Verde, yeah, they're like, oh, you stop acting dumb. You know what I mean? Like, oh, go kill yourself. Like, it's just the culture. You know what I mean? And it has to change. But I think, so much is happening right now. We have parents who are out of work looking for work. Now, you have kids dodging school because of ICE or whatever other reason. And come next week, 2 weeks from now, their funding for food might get cut.
Yeah,
Like,
we're right up against that deadline. I was reading an article just last night where people are asking just if you have time or effort to donate to pantries,
yeah,
donate
yep,
food, donate time, because when people's food stamps get cut as they're
it's
slated
gonna
to
be
do,
bad.
we're going to have, there's no backup plan for this.
Yeah.
So
I
it's
mean, we already have a problem, right? There's a lot of people going hungry.
right.
There's a lot of people starving, and now you're gonna cut funding. I just,
And so
it's gonna be
the
sad.
ripple effects of this
Yeah.
from my vantage point, right? We all have our ways that we can help. And for me, it's from the space of mental health.
Yeah.
And so when I think about it, it's okay, so people don't have food. So that's a basic need. So this increases people's stress. And then you see it everywhere in the world, right? It's
Yep.
people road rage, right? People having negative interactions with each other, people not being in a good mood, things being very difficult. Like all of a sudden people are snapping at you for no reason,
Yeah.
right? So these small things that they really make a huge impact in people's day-to-day functioning. And so there's a lot of things that we can do to help. One of the other things that nonprofit organizations like mine and others are facing is the severe lack of funding that is happening. So there are lots of ways that we're trying to help. Like in Brockton, we have a great partnership with Brockton Public Schools. We're currently bringing youth mental health first aid there to a lot of the health teachers, to physical education providers that are there, gym teachers. We have great help with the guidance staff there, but we have to sort of come in with a lot of our own dollars. So donating to organizations like Pinnacle or others who are doing this kind of work is really helpful. Our next step is to try to bring in teen mental health first aid. So this is going to teach the kids in school the signs and symptoms of a mental health need that they're seeing within one of their friends and how to address that. And then we'll now have all of the staff that are trained in youth mental health first aid that those kids can go to and say, hey, this kid that I'm friends with, I had to use teen mental health first aid on. And so now that teacher who's trained in it is going to be able to keep a closer eye on that kid. And so this helps to change the culture in schools and really help to build this and sustain the efforts around creating a better culture and a healthier environment for our kids as much as we can.
So speaking on Pinnacle Partnership, you're one of the founders. I think we kind of missed mentioning that. What made you come up with the idea? What made you start it all, and what keeps you going?
So I have a child that has mental health needs. And as a family that was going through trying to navigate the systems, figure out how to get him the right services that he needs. I mean, it was like learning a whole new language. I didn't know anything about mental health for kids or what I was supposed to do. He was very young when he was diagnosed. And as I continued to work through systems and figure things out, I really started to notice that families that didn't have the same types of opportunities that I did were struggling more than I did. So families where English wasn't their first language,
Yep.
families of color, families who were not being very open about whatever their documentation status or immigration status was in this country because they were afraid. These kinds of things, I would see families be treated differently than I was because I had access to an education. I was able to go into a room. I was a professional. I was used to being in a room with other people. I was not, taken aback by having conversations or pushing the envelope for my child. There are people who are not comfortable in that
Yeah.
situation,
Yep.
especially when you don't really know what you're talking about and you're sort of fumbling your way through. And like when you're talking about your own kid, your
Different.
emotions come up
Yeah.
in a different way, right?
For
Like
sure,
it's
yeah.
much easier to advocate for somebody else's kid because you're like a step back from
Right,
it.
yeah.
But when it's your own kid, you can't help but feel those emotions. You can't help but feel like you're going to cry in that moment when you know how much your kid is struggling and how much it's impacting their brothers and sisters or your family or how many days you've had to take off of work. Or maybe you're about to lose your job because the school keeps calling you to come pick up
Yeah.
your kid and you're like, but what is me picking up my kid going to do?
Right, yeah.
So I was sort of living all of that. And as I was going through that, I was realizing that there weren't enough organizations like mine that were trying to be nimble in like the changes that happen all the time. We have these great state agencies like the Department of Mental Health, even the Department of Children and Families, who gets a bad rap because it's a lot of like child protective services, but they do offer a lot of supports to help families out. But they're huge systems. It's hard for them to change. They're very, very overwhelmed with the amount of families
Yeah.
that they have. I mean, thousands of referrals a day are coming in, or reports are coming in a day. And so I really wanted to create a space that, one, made families become empowered to talk about what was happening with their kids. Two, to help to bridge these relationships between schools and organizations and families and come together as partners for each other and for our kids, for our aging parents, for everybody who mental health touches, which is everyone, right? I talk about that all the time. Like, there's nobody walking around who doesn't have mental health needs or is feeling mentally well. We're all somewhere on that spectrum,
Right, yeah.
but the conversation isn't always happening. And I wanted to create an organization where if in year 2022 we were facing this need, but in 2 years later, in
They
near
shift.
2024, there's something else happening that we could easily shift into that. And so we've been able to do that. We've started doing a lot of direct service with families. And now we're seeing that because of how challenging it is to work with so many families and seeing how overwhelmed the systems are, we're really shifting to try to bolster what's happening within systems, help teachers, help parents understand teachers, and teachers understand parents, and really work in that realm a little bit. It's shifting and changing all the time, and so we're always trying to meet that need, and it's a goal that I think we've been able to meet, is to continuously be nimble in changing and meeting the needs that are happening all the time.
So you brought up, I mean, you said you got into it because obviously you was dealing with it yourself. In the minority community, right? It's something like you're not supposed to talk about it, you know what I mean? But a conversation needs to get started. So what would you say to a parent out there who knows they need the help, knows their child's going through something, but just either embarrassed or ashamed to just pick up the phone and talk to somebody? What would you tell that parent?
I would tell that parent that the livelihood of your child and your family is far more important than what you think people are thinking about you. You know, a lot of times we walk around and think that people are thinking about us all the time, but really, if you think about how much you think about other people, it's a very small
Yeah.
amount. We're pretty much focused on ourselves most
Yeah.
of the time, right? And so that's the first thing, is to kind of get past some of that. I mean, I come from a Cape Verdean family, and so I know what it's like. I have a cousin who is now 65 years old, and he was diagnosed with Tourette's when he was very young. And there, you are not talking about that in Cape Verdean
No,
homes,
not that. Yeah, nope.
right? And so he has spent the majority of his life inside of his house. And my aunt, who is a wonderful, loving person, has said to me within the past several years how watching me do this work has been so eye-opening to her, who's somebody who's now approaching 90 and is still caring for my 65-year-old cousin, because first of all, there weren't services like there
Yeah,
are
right,
now,
yeah.
right? But there was so much shame and so much embarrassment. And now it's beyond the point of being able to do anything, right? Like, this is somebody who's also about to be on Medicare
Yeah,
and
right,
Social
yeah.
Security. And so not having access to community and all of those things, like, he's an entirely different person who doesn't know how to interface with the community. So the things that we do for our kids now, it does take courage. It is. You know, it's hard for me sometimes to talk about the fact that I have a child that has mental health needs, right? And as he has gotten older, we've had a lot of discussions along the way of how he feels about me sharing things. I think because he grew up in an environment where we have no shame about our feelings and we talk about them, he's very open about it. And so I feel like for parents, we have to create our own cultures in our own homes. And to go back to the original question of what would I say to a parent, I think it's really to follow your instincts, follow your heart. You know, we know our kids best. I always say that parents are the expert on their kids. We have these other experts that come in, doctors and teachers and people who are experts in their own way, but we are the experts on our kids. We know our kids from the very beginning. We know every scrape, every tear, every bump,
Every lie.
every lie. When they lie,
Yeah.
you know, the way their voice changes. And so I think if you just follow your instinct and just go more on what it is that your kid needs versus what you think somebody might think about it. Because no matter what decision you make,
They're
people
gonna
are going to
talk.
have a
Yep.
judgment on it.
Yep, for
So go with what you know is best for your child.
What are some of the signs as a parent should I be looking for? Depression, thoughts of suicide, or just burnt out? I mean, like, what are some of the signs I should be looking for as a parent?
Yeah, so some of the signs that parents can look for are changes in behavior that are extreme in one way or another. Maybe your child starts to become very removed or no longer interested in the things that they used to be interested in, or they may be very over the top, taking risks that they didn't take before, almost seeming like they run on like a motor. Some people may define it as manic. That's like if you have an actual diagnosis, but a lot of people know that term. Definitely, if you see your child starting to make statements that worry you in any way, you know, like we just said, we know our kids, right? So if your kid starts to say something that is worrisome, even if they say it as a joke, you know, it's okay as a parent to be the one to say, like, what do you mean you'll just go kill yourself?
Right.
Right? Sometimes kids will slide something like that in there as a joke, but we should take those moments seriously. And even if they are saying it as a joke, it's our job as parents in that moment to say that's not
It's not
funny,
a funny joke.
right?
Yeah,
We
yeah.
don't joke around about things like that. You know, being disengaged from their schoolwork, from their friends, make giving things away. This is a sign of if somebody is considering suicide.
Really?
They'll give away things that they like, that they care about. If they seem like they've been very depressed for a while, and then all of a sudden it seems like they're better, that's a sign that they may have actually decided that they're going to move forward on suicide. And because they've made that plan, there's like a relief that they have because they know that they've decided that they're going to move forward with suicide.
And if you see any of these signs, what's the first thing you should do?
So you can always call 988. 988 is a crisis line that has been established. It's similar to 911, but you get a mental health clinician. You can always also call 911. The difference is that if you call 911, you're going to get police, ambulance,
Fire,
fire,
yep.
right? They'll still respond, but with 988, you'll get a mental health crisis professional first. And then if they feel like somebody should be deployed, like a law enforcement or somebody to come out immediately, they can also deploy those people. But you get the mental health professional first to help you figure that out.
Cool. So before we wrap it up, obviously I want to thank you for being here and sharing your information. Is there anything else you want to add? Any other topics you want to talk about? And last plug-in for Pinnacle Partnership.
Always gonna say to please donate to us on our website, pinships.org, or if you want to go directly to the donation page, it's pinships.org/donate. And then other than that, I would just say this is a time where I think we all need to be really aware of our own mental health and each other's mental health, and it never hurts to give someone a hug, a handshake, or a high five, and just try to
Be
bring each
kind.
other up. Right?
Like
Yeah.
I understand why it's something so simple, right? Just fucking be kind. Like I
Exactly.
don't understand why people just can't. I
Yeah.
don't get it. But
If you see somebody struggling or you see somebody having a hard time or somebody snaps at you, like maybe instead of going the
Snapping
road
back.
of snapping back, thinking like maybe their food stamps just got cut
Right. Yeah.
and they don't know how to feed their kids tonight, or maybe they're going to have to pick up
I mean,
a second job and they are going to have to leave their kids home
you
alone
never know what that
because they
person's going
can't
through.
afford a sitter. I mean, everybody has a story that could break your heart, right? And I think if we can all be a little bit more attuned to the human experience that we're all having, we could really support each other and make the world a better place just from where we sit.
Absolutely. Anything else? Any final words?
Nope. Thank you
Well,
so much for having me.
We appreciate you being here. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Stay tuned for the next episode.